Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is Giyu Tomioka in the spotlight today, our emo Hashira baby, and he is paired with a female listener, and this is titled Fortress. Enjoy. It was a lonely existence, living in the castle surrounded by wisteria in the mountains. Days would float by, and each one the exact same as the last. Yin, your older brother called out, knocking on your bedroom door before pushing it open. Come on, let's do something exciting. Like what? You asked, getting down off the windowsill that you loved to sit on. It had the best view of the valley beyond. You could see for miles, and sometimes you'd even get to see travellers moving along the track in the distance outside. You'd make up stories in your head about where they were going and what they were doing, and you'd follow them in your daydream, adding in as many exciting things as possible. So for your brother to come in and actually propose that you do something exciting was very appealing. Let's go and play by the gate, he offered. The gate? You whined. That's so boring. How old are we? We don't play by the gate anymore. No, just come, he said, grabbing your wrist and pulling you along with him. Is there something there? You asked him, wondering what this sudden interest in the gate was all about. Come, he said sharply. So you shut up and let him take you with him. Down the extremely long corridor you walked, the sun streaming in through each of the ginormous windows that lined the way, making it feel much warmer than it usually did. You were dragged to the front door and then out down the steps and around the fountain out the front of the house. As you passed the fountain, you wondered why it was always running. It's not like anyone came to visit anyway. Your brother then started taking you down the front driveway, meandering through the well-kept hedges as he followed the path to the gate, the small stones and grit crunching underfoot as you approached the large iron bars that were the main entrance to your estate. He stopped proudly in front of it and gestured to it. Ta-da! He announced brightly. And? You asked in a bored tone. It was the gate, the front gate. That's it. Nothing special at all. Why did he bring you here with the promise of something exciting if there was nothing exciting there? Look, he demanded. You looked where he was pointing. Gate, you said again, unenthused by his enthusiasm. No, dummy, no lock, he said in a more hushed voice, in case someone were to hear him, but no one else was around. You looked again, and he was correct. There was no lock on the gate. It could be opened whenever you wanted it to be opened. Oh, you said with surprise. Why isn't it locked? Usually it's locked. I know. Let's go and explore, he said excitedly, letting go of your wrist and stepping towards it to open it. Wait, no, we can't, you said, quickly grabbing his arm to stop him. Why not? He asked as he looked back over his shoulder at you. Because there are demons out there, you replied. He snorted. I'm starting to think that they're made up. Have you ever seen one before? He asked you. Well, no, because this place is surrounded by wisteria and it keeps them away, but Mum and Dad say they exist, you replied diplomatically. Pfft, Mum and Dad are old, and they're going loopy, your brother scoffed. I bet there's no such thing as demons. I'm going to go out there and explore. We've never been allowed to go outside this place, and it's like living in hell, he said, and you could relate. You felt his desperation to be free because it was how you felt too, but you were scared to go beyond the gates because of what your Mum and Dad had told you. You didn't move when he reached for the gate and pulled on it. It creaked and groaned, crying out in metal agony at being forced to move. Come on, he said, moving the gate open just enough to squeeze between the bars. You shook your head, unable to speak. You've seen people outside from the window, haven't you? Walking down the bush path? He asked you. You nodded. See? They're allowed to walk around outside, aren't they? No one tells them that they can't go anywhere. Let's go. We'll be completely fine. Just come with me, he said. Your heart was starting to pound now. What did you do? Did you stay here in the safety of your home and let him go out there by himself? What if something happened to him? What if something didn't happen to him? What if he was right and there was no such thing as demons and you were being kept here missing out on life? The war inside you was immense and he could see that, so he decided to make the decision easy for you and lunged at you, then grabbed your arm and dragged you out the gate with him. You fought him a little bit, but seeing the wisteria planets towering overhead distracted you heavily, and you found yourself transfixed on your new surroundings, seeing trees and flowers up close that you'd never seen before. Your brother was happy to have someone along with his misadventure and continued down the track, still pulling you by the arm. The track from your house wasn't well worn, but it wasn't overgrown either. He didn't know where he was going, but he was just determined to keep going until he got to the closest town. Then he'd decide what he wanted to do from there. 1 hour, 2 hour, almost 3 hours of walking, and you were starting to get very tired. My legs hurt, you said from behind your brother as you kept on down the track. And the sun is starting to set. We'll stop under a tree somewhere and sleep the night, then keep going tomorrow, he said nonchalantly as he finally let your arm go, confident enough that you were both far enough away from home that you wouldn't run back there and leave him on his own. You didn't really like the sound of this wonderful idea of his, but you knew that suggesting heading back home wasn't going to be well received either, so you just kept following meekly behind. You weren't sure how much longer you kept walking for, but your legs were well and truly exhausted by now, and your joints were complaining heavily, not to mention that it was nightfall now, and the stars were well and truly out in the night sky. "Can we please stop?" you finally asked your brother, and he nodded. "Yeah, we've made good headway," he said, walking off the track a little and sitting down under a tree on the side of the track. You followed him and flopped down next to him. "Oh, I'm so tired," you yawned. "Yeah, I'm a bit tired too," he replied, placing a hand on your shoulder as you lay your head down in his lap and settled down. Before you knew it, you were asleep, passed out there on the ground, using your brother's leg as a pillow while he'd fallen asleep upright, resting back against the tree trunk behind him. Your dreams were muddled and weird, full of strange sounds and screaming, and you suddenly woke to a particularly loud scream that penetrated your dream state and slingshot you back into reality. You sat up with a start, head whipping left and right, trying to work out where you were and what was going on. It was hard to get your bearings in the dark, but it wasn't long before you remembered that you had left your mansion and were alone in the woods with your brother. Your brother was still there, and awake now too, but was paralysed with fear, his eyes wider than dinner plates as he stared out into the night. What is that?" you whispered in a shaky voice, as another scream rang out from beyond the trees in the darkness. "I don't know," your brother returned in a whisper, too afraid to move. I want to go back home," you whimpered when you heard another strange sound in the night that made your blood run cold. "Maybe we should hide behind this tree," your brother offered. "Okay," you replied, getting up slowly on shaky legs and following your brother around behind the tree. "How much longer till daylight?" you whispered to him, and he shook his head. "I don't know," he whispered back. Just then, in the bush, you could hear walking footsteps. You weren't sure how many there were coming through the bush, but it appeared to be a few, and they appeared to be getting closer to you and your brother. "I'm scared," you whispered, still in that shaky voice, as you turned to your brother and clung to him, burying your face into his jacket. He wrapped an arm around you protectively, but that's all that he could do, really. He didn't know how else to prepare for whoever it was that was coming towards you. You could still hear footsteps, but couldn't see anyone because of your hidden face. But as the footsteps got closer, you could hear them slow, and then stop, and you felt your brother's arm grip tighter around you. Well, what do we have here?" you heard an eerie voice ask, and you felt your brother start trembling. "Two lost souls. How about we help them find their way?" another voice replied to the first, and they both started to snicker deviously. Don't come near us," you heard your brother say, and then he all of a sudden went limp, and you lifted your head instinctively, feeling like something had happened. Although it was dark and you couldn't see well, you could still make out your brother, his head no longer where it should be, and it took you a second to register what had happened before you screamed loudly. "Ah, my favourite sound," one of the voices said with cruel laughter, and your head turned in slow increments to look in their direction, your eyes wide and irises trembling. No, you whispered frantically. "No, my brother, what did you do to him?" "Same thing that's about to happen to you, my dear," one of the demons replied, its grotesque form bending awkwardly to reach out to you, but before it could touch you, it was swiftly sliced into 3 pieces, head, middle, and arms all being removed, and you screamed as it appeared to explode before you. The same fate occurred with the second demon, and it found itself decapitated and diced in a similar manner. Petrified, you covered your eyes with your arms and screamed again. "Hey, stop screaming," a calm but dull voice said to you, and you removed your arms from across your face and looked to see who was speaking to you, as this person's voice sounded much nicer than the voices of the demons who had just killed your brother, despite this person's dull tone. You could make out this person's figure in the dark, but couldn't quite get a good look at their face, as the cloud cover had increased at that point, making it harder to distinguish features. Who are you?" you asked gingerly. "No one important. What are you doing out here?" the person asked. My brother and I were going to town, but we didn't make it in time, so I slept out here and..." you said. "Foolish," this person replied. You knew that to be true now, and hung your head. "I'm sorry," you whispered. "Where'd you come from?" this person asked. "The Wisteria Mansion," you replied. "That's far from here. Why did you leave?" they asked, extending their hand to you to help you up from the ground. You took their hand and was almost pulled off your feet. They were so strong. I didn't want to, but my brother, you said, starting to get emotional now. You shouldn't have come out here, they said as they turned and started walking. Wait, where are you going? You asked, taking a few running steps to catch up. Taking you back to the mansion. Keep up, they replied. Please, can I at least know your name? Did you kill the demons? You asked, bombarding this person with questions. Giyu Tomioka, the person replied, the clouds moving out of the way just a little to reveal their form better. A male, of decent height, wearing a two-toned haori. Yes, I killed them. Do you know how to fight them? You asked. Yes, Giyu replied. Okay, you said back to him, keeping much closer and feeling a little safer now that you were travelling with someone who could protect you. For an hour you walked in silence, the only sounds around you being the slight shift of the trees in the night breeze, midnight animals calling for their mates, and the occasional sound of water rushing. Is there a creek nearby? You asked Giyu when you heard the water sounds again, as it appeared to be getting louder this time. No, he replied. We're being followed. Followed? You whispered harshly. By who? By what? Demons, he replied calmly, continuing to walk. That's not good. Where are they? What if they catch up? You asked. They've already caught up. They're already around us, he replied calmly. Your heart sank. How many are there? You asked numbly. 5, he replied. 5 is way too many, you screamed internally, stepping faster to catch up behind him so you could pinch a piece of his clothing between your thumb and forefinger, like what you used to do to your brother. Your eyes welled with tears as you suddenly remembered his fate, and your bottom lip started to tremble. Please don't let me die like my brother, you begged to Giyu in a choked-up voice. Neither of us will die, he replied, stopping and standing still. Keep a hold of me and stay close. You had no issues obeying those orders, and so close you stayed, looking around you in the dark. The rushing water sound started to surround you and move in, and you could feel the fear and tension building inside you. Suddenly, Tomioka put his arm back to shield you as he slashed out with his sword, hitting something that you couldn't see. He's so fast, you thought as he nimbly stepped around you and swiped his sword again, using you as an almost pivot point as he fought back against these demons who were very adept at hiding in the shadows. You knew for certain that if you had been alone, you'd have been killed multiple times over, and were forever grateful for him being there. After he had taken out 2 of the demons, he spoke to you. See that rock there? He pointed off to his left without looking in that direction. Hide behind that. I'll deal with these last 3 demons. You looked over to where he had pointed, and ran as fast as you could towards the dark shadow that you assumed was the boulder, quickly ducking around behind it and crouching down. At first you just sat there panting for breath, while the sounds of fighting beyond the boulder rang out in the dark. But curiosity got the better of you, and you peeked out from your safe spot to watch Giyu do his work. He moved so swiftly, like the water sounds that he was fighting, and was well over the power of the demons that surrounded him, easily slicing them in multiple ways before finishing up and calling for you to come out. You slowly stood up and stepped out from behind the rock and then ran over to him. He knew you were still scared and opened his arms out for you to come and run into his side, which you did, clutching onto him for dear life. They're gone now, he said, standing still for a second to let your trembling subside a little. Then he started to move again, removing his arm from around your side so that you could follow behind him. After that, the rest of the trip was uneventful, and by first light you were almost back home again. I'll see you to the gate, he said, still walking in front of you. Won't you come in? You asked him. No, he replied. His reply felt cold, but held no malice. That's just how he felt. And you were disheartened, but you kind of felt like it's not like he didn't like you, it's just how he was. You walked in silence then for the rest of the way back to your mansion, and saw servants and all kinds of house tenders running around inside the gates looking for you when you got close enough to see them. There was, however, a great uproar when one of the servants looked out through the gates and saw you, following a strange-looking man up towards the mansion. The guards were dispatched immediately, and Giyu was quickly detained once you got within reach of your estate. Wait, don't hurt him, he saved me, you begged when you saw them grab him. Where did you go? One guard asked gruffly. Brother and I left on our own. It was foolish, and he lost his life, but if it weren't for Giyu, I would have died as well, you said with tears in your eyes. Please let him free. Now that the morning sun had risen rapidly, you got a chance to look at your saviour and found him very pleasing to the eye. stern and somewhat emotionless, yet very dependable, and you suddenly felt quite shy before him. At your request, the guards let him go, and he turned to you. Don't leave this mansion again, but should you need to, call for me, he said as he walked up beside you and placed a hand on your shoulder, facing past you and looking off down the track. I will come. Thank you, Giyu, you said softly as you stared at your dusty feet. Thank you for saving me. Your beauty shouldn't go to waste, he said calmly. Remember your life. If we ever meet again, I'll be glad. And with that he walked off, heading back down the path that he had come. And then what happened next, Mummy? Your daughter asked, 100% involved in the story of your meeting with her daddy for the first time. You were sat on her bed, telling her about it, reliving it step by step as the memories flooded your being. And then, a few months later, I got to go to town with Grandma and Grandpa, and we were attacked. The horse and carriage were tipped over, and there were demons all around us, you said. She gasped dramatically and covered her little mouth with her hands. Oh no! Did Daddy come and save you? She asked with innocent curiosity. Yes, he did, and he remembered me, you said with a dreamy smile. Grandpa then begged him to protect us for the rest of our trip, and he agreed to it. He was with us for the whole 2 weeks, and I think that's when he started to like me. Oh, that's so romantic, she gushed dreamily, and you chuckled. It was very romantic, you replied. And then he stayed with us even when we went back to the mountains, and 2 years later we had you. Me, she said excitedly. Yes, you little munchkin. Okay, off to sleep. We have a big day tomorrow. Daddy's going to start your training, right? You asked as you patted her on the head. Yep, I'm going to be a hasiwa, she announced proudly. You are better than Daddy, you said cheekily, glancing up as you saw him stop at the bedroom door to listen to your talking. Likely, he replied, before walking on down the hall, and you chuckled. Good night, my sweets, you then said to your little girl, helping to tuck her into bed before walking to the bedroom door and turning off the lights. Dream big, sleep big. Love you, Mummy, she said with a yawn. Love you too, sweetheart, you replied as you felt strong arms hug you from behind. Giyu had come back up the hall to get you. And I love you too, Giyu, you said to your man behind you, glancing over your shoulder to look into his deep matte blue and black eyes. Love you, he said as he kissed the back of your neck and squeezed you a little around the middle. And I hope that did him justice. Kind of liked that little story. It was a little sweet one. Stay tuned for next week's one shot. Another Demon Slayer contender will be up on the block. We'll see who it is. I'll see you then.